Hi, I'm Mitch, and welcome to the Restoration Road. My guest today is worship leader Tyler Nickols. Tyler has an incredible heart for God. He's going to share his amazing story on how our creator of the universe grabbed his heart and began to lead him to lead others in worship. Tyler, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I always thought I was going to plant a church with you and you'd be my worship leader, but we'll get to that, okay? There's a reason for all that. You grew up in a Christian home. I'd like you to describe what that was like, and you say it was a sports family. What was that about? And you look like you're a great athlete.
Well, I grew up in a Christian home. You know, we were involved in the church. My dad was heavily involved in the church. My mom sang on the worship team. So I grew up around that kind of environment. We were looked as a good Christian family in the community. My dad was the president of a local park where they had baseball, soccer, all those kind of things. Harlan Park here locally.
Sure.
And he was the president there. And so we just grew up playing sports all the time, baseball, soccer, basketball, like Y-ball. And my brothers all played football and basketball and all these sports. So, but yeah, just a Christian family, heavily involved in sports.
Did you go to church probably 2 or 3 times a week?
Yeah, every week. Every week. I mean, it wasn't an option. You know?
Right,
We were there wearing our Sunday best and always showing up, so.
You have a very secure family upbringing and background, and then a crisis comes. Can you describe how that all unfolded?
You know, I was about 13, which is a pretty significant time of, you know, adolescence when you're growing. And, you know, and it happens to many families. It's not something that is super odd these days, sadly. But my parents went through a divorce. And I just remember, you know, it being a very significant thing in my life. It was very painful. Just seeing both of my parents struggling and it just coming unraveled. And I remember the day we moved my dad out of the house. You know, it was just, it was a sad time, it was one of those, you know, kind of like your arm gets chopped off or something, you know, it was just a significant time. I remember one of my friends in the neighborhood said, "Tyler, I never expected your family to go through this. You're a good Christian family in the community. What's going on here?"
That was like a dagger.
Yeah. And, but, you know, God's about restoring. So you just keep living and God works all things out for good, but it doesn't change the fact that it's very hurtful. And so that was a big part of a big painful part of my life.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. Yeah, so I have 3 older brothers, and then now I have 2 stepsisters.
So what was that like together? Did they take sides, or, you know, did you find comfort in each other? Did you argue with each other? How did that unfold with your 3 older brothers?
There were not sides taken. My oldest brother went to college, so he was kind of removed from the situation. And then my 2 other brothers, I have twin brothers, Craig and Corey. And so, yeah, we were very much right in the middle, you know, once a week, and then every other weekend we were at my dad's house. And then we spent the majority of the time with my mom. But one thing to my dad's credit is he did not just leave. He remained in our lives and wanted to be at all of our events and things like that. So
that's powerful.
Yeah.
So is that the time when you changed schools?
It is. So I was in 7th grade, and I was going to Woodland, which is a local school here, and I was all about football. I wanted to play in the NFL, and Joe Montana was my favorite.
Oh, come on, man.
I'm killing you, I know.
You look like you could be Joe Montana.
So Joe Montana, the San Francisco 49ers, that was my team. And then he got traded to the
Kansas City
Chiefs. And so then from then on, I wanted to be the Kansas City Chiefs. So I remember crying after one of our first games in 7th grade because I wanted to go undefeated. I wanted to be an undefeated team. And I remember I was just so involved with sports. I was so passionate. I wanted to go to the NFL. Well, then after 7th grade, my brothers had switched over to Blackhawk Christian, which is a local high school here. And so I wanted to follow suit. It was more about being around my brothers. And so I actually had to give up my dreams to play football.
was on a basketball team in 6th grade that was undefeated. In 7th grade, when they pooled all the other schools together in the area, we were undefeated.
Oh, wow.
In 8th grade, we were undefeated. In 9th grade, they start splitting us up a little bit. Nobody cares about this unblemished record. And they start splitting us up a little bit with JV in the high school. And back then, 9th grade was still in junior high. And it was 5 games in when it finally happened.
Oh, no.
And I tell you, I get it when they say like a team comes into March Madness undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
You play differently when you haven't lost before, when you're in that moment where you could lose.
Yeah.
It's like a brand new feeling. Mm-hmm. And I can see how a lot of teams tighten up when that finally occurs, when they're down quite a bit with a little bit to go and they may not make it.
Yeah.
So what's Blackhawk Christian School like for you?
So Blackhawk was amazing. I mean, just the sovereignty of God. The day that I arrived, a guy named Tyler showed me around. He was wearing the exact same shirt I did, so it was like twins. And I just hit it off with so many people there, just such a great environment that God had prepared for me. However, when I was, when sports came up, so soccer and basketball, I tried out for those. Again, keep in mind, sports family, very athletic growing up. I was the only one cut from the basketball team.
You're kidding me. Was Steve Longbreak the coach anymore at that point?
It was, it was Mr. McIntosh, Mr. Mac.
Oh, sure.
And then I was one of 3 that was cut from the soccer team.
Oh, my word.
So at that point, I wasn't super devastated like I thought I'd be, but I'm like, what is going on? Why am I cut? The only one cut. And that's when I picked up a guitar.
Really? Where'd you get it?
My friend Brett, I was over at his house, and we were friends. We hung out on the weekends, and he showed me a song by the Smashing Pumpkins called "Disarmed," and he's playing it, and I'm like, "How do you play that? You got to show me that. That's cool." And so just 4 little chords: G or C, G, D over F sharp down to E minor, and I'm playing these chords, and I'm like, this is awesome. So then my mom was on the worship team. I got her chord book, brought it home, asked my buddy if I could borrow his guitar. He let me, and I just started learning chords. Just learn how to play an E minor, look at the song book, just start playing it. I'd sing over it because I was familiar with the song. And next thing you know, I just started picking up songs and more songs, strumming and singing, writing songs.
Really?
Yep.
Where do you think that was coming from, the writing?
The writing?
Yeah.
I just think it was probably the pain I've been through, different pain and the crying out for God. And a lot of the lyrics are about pain and about crying out towards God in my pain.
Do you still have new songs going through your mind?
Yep. I'm working on one right now, actually. The church just started doing it up in Warsaw area. So I'm working on more songs. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So when do you lead worship for the first time?
First time I was 13.
Really?
So right in that same time, I was going to the church I grew up in, and they had a Wednesday night Bible study. And they said, hey, get up here, start playing, So I probably knew 2 or 3 songs and then started playing at that point.
Well, tell me about your weekend away where you're humbled and something significant happens in your life.
Yeah, so my dad and my stepmother, Sherry, took Craig and Corey, my twin brothers, and I on a trip. And at this time, I was really just, I would hear my brothers talk about how they were seeking God. They went to Purdue, they had friends there, and they were talking about things like we were praying together, praying over each other, just, they were telling all these stories about how they were involved with ministry. And I just they would say things like, the Lord is just leading me to do this. And I would be like, I never talk that. Like, what is this?
And it's pretty unique coming from college students.
Yeah. And so I just was like, I want more of that. And I remember just kneeling at my bed all by myself, close the door, and just, okay, God, is this what it means to seek you? Just get down on my knees. And I'd close my eyes and like, God, I want to know you more. And I began to ask God, dangerous prayer, but I asked God to humble me. And so we were on this trip, and there were two instances. One, we were on a long bike trail, like probably a 20-mile bike ride. And I was so, I just wanted to beat my brothers. I had such a competitive spirit. I wanted to beat my brothers, just like rub it in their face.
Yeah.
So I went out ahead of them, got so far ahead of them that I missed the turn. And I went about 5 miles past the turn. This was before I had a cell phone.
And you're thinking, man, I'm killing them.
Yeah.
I'm
so
way
like,
ahead.
I'm like, so this is a very humbling experience. You know, I get down to the bottom, and this guy, in his family, I said, hey, where is Damascus? Because that's the road, that's Damascus Road.
This is incredible.
It was this town called Damascus, and he goes, it's 5 miles back up the trail. And I said, are you, oh my goodness, okay. So here I am, I go back, finally, my dad and my stepmom and family are worried sick, like, where'd Tyler go?
How old are you at the time?
I was probably 15.
Okay.
15 or 16. And go to this restaurant, all is well, we're eating. The same guy that I saw 5 miles down the trail eventually shows up in this restaurant, and he said, I knew you were a Christian when I saw you because I could see Jesus in your eyes.
Oh my goodness.
And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. And what's funny about that is that same phrase, I could see Jesus in your eyes, around that time it happened about 3 other times where people had told me that. So I'm like, what is happening?
When your hair's long, you do look like Jesus.
Yeah, which I just cut, by the way. And so clearly God was trying to communicate to me that he's with me, that he loves me, he has a plan for my life. So that was one instance of humbling on that trip, going, way past the Damascus. When you get insight on what that means, you can let me know. But then there was one other thing. We were going whitewater rafting that day. It was just a real simple whitewater rafting, nothing huge, like 5 class 5s, but it was just a class 1, 2, and I think maybe 3 was the highest. So a class 1 is just very simple. And I just told my brothers to say, you watch this. I'm so much better than you guys that I'm going to go down backwards. And I just watch how this is done. I'm going to go first, just real prideful and arrogant. Well, I fell out. And I got on very shallow water, and I got super scraped up all down my legs. And just another humbling experience. On the way home from that vacation, I was in my car, or in my dad's car. We were driving back, and I remember just praying and asking God. I just felt this super closeness with God than I've ever felt before. It was like I sensed his Holy Spirit with me more than ever. And I began to almost come alive in a new way as it pertained to worship. What's funny is the God that I was on stage, like I was serving in chapel at Blackhawk.
Right.
They asked me to be on the team. Corbin Miller, he was leading at the time. He asked me to sing on the team. So I began to play, not even knowing all the chords were playing, but he kicked me into it. And I remember going back to worship that very next day. I was scheduled with like a new outlook on worship. The very God that I'm up there playing is the same God I'm kneeling in my room praying to. It was like, it seemed so elementary, but the two connected.
No, it's huge.
They connected. The very God that I pray to and the very God that I'm just up here strumming chords to, they connected. And from that moment on, prayer and worship, actually being on the stage, it's like they married. And I've never been the same since.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So you start leading worship, you're helping with Corbin, and you play at coffee shops, I think, at the same time?
Yeah, so around that time I was playing at coffee shops, playing at school chapel, playing at church. I played drums as well, so drums and guitar and singing, and all these things just started, tons of opportunity. I played any chance I could get anywhere.
And so when it comes time to decide what to do for college, what options are you looking at?
I was planning to go to IU, Kelly School of Business. That's where I wanted to go.
Wow.
And while I got ready to go, I was really into watching the Hillsong videos that were out at the time, the DVDs.
Me too.
And I just remember watching those and thinking, that same passion that they have on the stage as they sing, I said, I sense that when I'm playing and singing from this performance and prayer combined. I'm like, that's me. I totally understand this expression and this passion. And I remember hearing that they had a college. My stepmom said, Tyler, they actually have a college. You should look into that. So I look into it. I apply. I get accepted.
Sydney, Australia?
Yep, Sydney, Australia. Then I apply for my visa for Sydney, for Australia. I get accepted. Next thing you know, I got a plane ticket. Next thing you know, I'm going for college there. If you know anything about the Enneagram scale, it's like a personality profile. I'm a 7.
Okay.
So, and I've always been that way, obviously. I remember taking personality profiles at Blackhawk with Steve Longbreak. And I've always been that adventurous type, you know, pioneer, new horizons. I love to travel. I love to go all these places. And that's what it was. I mean, I was a pioneer. No one had ever been there from my family. I land in Sydney. The very first thing I do is hop on a payphone, call home, hey, I'm here. And a taxi picks me up and takes me to my new house with my roommates from the college. And off I go into Australia.
Did you hit it off with them?
Yeah.
With your roommates?
Yeah. There was about 6 or 7 roommates from China, Norway, Sweden, the US, Germany, Switzerland, Brazil. So just all of a sudden, all these people who love Jesus from all over the world in one location in a house, getting ready to go to college, and we're all here with a similar story. We all felt the calling from God to be here at the same time. So as you can imagine, you make friends with all these people, and now you have lifelong friends, just like you would. So.
I had several customers from Australia, and one of them sent me an Australian dictionary, and then he would teach me some things. So can I see if you know what they are?
Sure.
Because I can't remember what they are, I just know the words. He would teach me fair dinkum.
Fair dinkum. So basically it means it's good, or it's going well, or...
Okay. Beauty bottler.
Ooh, I can't say I know.
Hopefully it's not a cuss word.
No.
How about this? How about there's one more? She'll be right.
She'll be right, yeah. So everything's going to be okay.
So maybe all 3 of those mean the same thing, and he taught me to do them as a trio.
Yeah.
Fair dinkum, beauty bottler, she'll be right. Yeah. Do you have an Australian accent?
Oh, yeah. Well, the funny thing is I actually tried to keep my American accent. And when you're there over an extended period of time, you start to use the same inflections of their voice. They go up on everything. Like, hey, how's it going? We went to the beach, and then we had a barbecue. And how you doing? How was your weekend? Everything's up. And in America, it's like, how was your weekend?
Yeah, we're down.
We go down. They're always up. And which is really like their culture. I mean, everything just seems like, no worries, mate. You know?
Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. Well, I remember the first time I encountered Darlene Check, and I found out a year later that this happened to everybody who was in the room. My wife and I were at a business retreat for entrepreneurs and their wives, or executives and their wives, and the worship was amazing. The teaching was amazing. They would bring in people like Henry Nouwen. I mean, it was just unreal. Yeah. Well, out of the blue, they said, we have just discovered that one of the newest, most powerful worship leaders isn't too far away, and we're going to fly her in, and she's going to lead worship for us. And it was Darlene Check, and Shout to the Lord had just come out, and I don't know if I'd heard it yet.
Okay.
And because I was in a small group with the guy that just by random, that ran everything, I'm sitting in the front row. It's probably 800 people max. And she does her thing, and I feel like I had gone to heaven. What just happened to me is what I'm just wondering the whole time. Found out later she had the flu. And I thought, if God does that with her when she has the flu, that is amazing. And I couldn't get enough. And so I did what you did. I started watching the DVDs. I started getting everything I could, listening to everything. I started casting the vision to people around me. Look, I think church could be even more engaging and usher you more in the presence of God. So you get there, and do you encounter like Brian Houston, Darlene Check, the whole crew? What happens?
Yeah, so I remember showing up just with a zeal like I had never had before, you know. First of all, you're in a completely unknown territory. And I think the very first night I got there, there was youth group. So Hillsong United, right? So that's basically the 3 or 4 age groups get together.
Yeah.
And I remember just on my knees in worship and just really seeking God, just hungry. And it's just that whole environment, that whole culture. I'm a firm believer that everything, like John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. You look at Brian Houston and you look at Darlene Check, and they are authentic to the core. It's really who they are.
Oh, that's so cool.
And they're just leading out of who they are. And then that's why it's powerful. They've been deeply touched by the gospel. And it's a beautiful thing. So to answer your question, I dove in head over heels into everything I possibly could. In fact, Mitch, I had to learn how not to serve as much as I was. At one point, I was serving in 12 services on a weekend.
Wow.
And the worship pastor in the city who reported to Darlene pulled me aside and said, "Tyler, you're going to kill yourself. What are you doing? Go home. Go home." I'm like, I'm just like, no, I want to be here. I want to be, I want whatever's here. I want to get it. But it was, every worship experience was, that breakthrough that you experienced when Darlene led.
Yeah.
It kind of goes from just singing songs to having a breakthrough encounter with heaven.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a breakthrough.
Yeah.
Something transpiring in the unseen world that all of a sudden you're sensing, I don't know what it is, but I sense the presence of God. I don't know, I'm not a theologian. All I know is that heaven feels near right now.
Yeah.
And just because of the leadership in that place, that's what was taught for every service. So, every service you went to, there was a breakthrough like that. And so it's sort of like, what a place to be in.
Yeah.
What an experience. It was absolutely wonderful. And then I went to the college. So Darlene taught in that and she was from time to time, she was very obviously fruitful in her ministry, going all over the world and things like that. But we did get time with her one-on-one with classes. And then all of the wonderful teachers, they're basically teaching you how to do ministry from that foundational place. And so it was awesome. And it's still going strong today. So
Were you there 2 years?
I was. There was a 2-year program.
So you come back, what happens?
So I get back, land in Fort Wayne, and what's so funny is I remember thinking every deep breath that I took, like when I would just start to relax, take a deep breath, it almost felt like the Hillsong experience that I had was leaving me. Like, it's sort of like I'm getting back into the routine here and not staying there. And that's obviously not the case, but it didn't really leave me. But I just remember having that experience here and coming back to the U.S., and it's not the same culture.
Right.
And so you have to come back here, and it's a new normal. It's a new normal that you have to learn. And when I got here, I did an internship under a worship pastor and a senior pastor for a year, and then ended up planting a church with my father. That was about 7 years.
Wow.
But I was very Hillsong-esque, And so, of course, everything we did was out of that.
Yeah.
But one valuable lesson I learned, Mitch, and it's hard. It's a hard lesson. But copying somebody without the foundation of going through the hard yards, when you copy people, you copy their worst characteristics. So in other words, I want a Hillsong environment so much that sometimes it's at the expense of people.
Yeah.
The very people we're trying to love, the very people that we're supposed to be ministering to, can then become a tool to get what you really want, instead of loving this person for who they are as a as a child of God, it almost, they lose, it's easy for me in my mind at that time to say, you know, I do love this person, but I just want him to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Just do that so we
Yeah.
can have this experience.
Yes.
And over the years, I've just learned, like, a prayer that I had is, God, make me that from the inside out. Like, make that who I am. I want to have that worship. I want to be able to provide that kind of experience like Darlene did.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times people want to take shortcuts to get there. And God's not about a shortcut. He's so much more about developing the character deep within our heart, deep within who we are. And he's not in any hurry. And his ways are way higher than our ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to learn over time just to humble myself under his mighty hand, that in due season, he will lift me up.
There you go.
And so it's just that humbling experience again. Just, this isn't about trying to copy. This is about the living God.
Yeah.
That's just who he is. Who Hillsong has tapped into is just a character of who our God is. And Hillsong's not something special in the sense of, like, God can do that very thing here through us. And then it comes to this humbling, God, I humble myself. Maybe it's not even for my generation, Mitch. Maybe I'm setting up for my kids' generation.
Yeah.
And just being willing to, like, erase my name, erase my face, and God, you get the aroma of your glory. Let your glory be the thing that you get the credit for. And then I just want to be a faceless, nameless person that helps that happen amongst his people and this culture.
Tyler, thank you so much. Thank you for being here
Absolutely.
today. I can't let you get away without asking you, do you want to do a little song before you go? Part of a song?
Oh man, let's see. When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss, and pour contempt on all my pride.
Thank you, brother. Love you, man.
Love you too. Thank you.
Hi, Mitch. Join Shirley Woods and me next week on the Restoration Road as we continue our series, Making Sense of Why Bad Things Happen to Good People.